equivalence or some sort of bullshit in order to rationalize why you're getting the negativity. Sorry, I got a text message. Apologies. And anyway, like I'll give you some examples because I thought about this last night and I talked about it with some people in my chat. Is like Valheim. Whenever Valheim came out, the biggest toxicity and the biggest drama about Valheim was, could you move ore through portals? That's it. That's all people were upset about. They're like, oh wow, you know, this is, oh my god, everybody's complaining, they're so mad. Like, yeah, that was the main issue that people had. There were like some other things too people were not happy about. Yeah, but these were just like footnotes, and these were things that people were like, yeah, I wish this would improve, and that's about it, right? Then on top of that, look at a game like Hades, right? Hades comes out universally loved by like everybody that was playing it pretty much. Like I played it recently, and I think that it deserved the hype. It was great. People loved that game, and there was no toxicity a lot with that game at all, really, as far as I saw. Another example was Shadowlands. Whenever Shadowlands was released, there was no real negativity or toxicity about Shadowlands whenever it came out. Even with Legion was the same thing. Well, actually, no, Legion wasn't because of the Legendary thing. Legendary thing made a lot of people mad. Bad example. But with Shadowlands, no, I remember this. Like, no, it's a cap. It's not. Like, do you guys really remember, like, at the beginning of Shadowlands, everybody was very positive about the expansion? Am I crazy? Like, I don't think I'm crazy. Yeah, I don't think I'm fucking crazy, man. I'm pretty sure that people were really hyped up and really happy about the expansion. People were super positive about Shadowlands for the first month of the release. People loved the game. Oh fuck, Rich is calling me. I'll decline that for now. Sorry guys. I've really got to remember to turn that off before I go live. Apologies for that. I can't do it right now. So yeah, anyway. Fuck, that actually did distract me. What was I talking about? Oh, Shadowlands, right. So Shadowlands came out, and the entire WoW subreddit, I remember, like, one of the most interesting things about whenever Shadowlands got released, it was the first time in a long time that PvPers were actually happy. Like, there were a lot of people that were just logging on, and they were happy to just simply enjoy PvP and play the game. And that's something that we hadn't really seen at that point since, like, Warlords of Draenor, or, like, Mists of Pandaria, more realistically. There were so many people coming back, like, you know, Mitch Jones and Soda Poppin coming back to do fucking 42 and 0, and Zaryu fucking dropping the deep freezes, and it was just like old times, right? And that was awesome. So to say that like every video game subreddit is toxic, especially on release, is just like it's just like not true. And it's just so sad to me to see the people in the New World community make so many excuses for obvious examples of incompetence and mismanagement. And also, like, there are bugs that exist in New World that existed in the preview event last year. Like, I'm not talking about, oh, you know, oh, there's a little bug here, and, you know, whenever I click on this mob, it doesn't work. No, like, there's hitbox issues. Like, there's only fucking 30 NPCs in the whole game. So if 3 of them have hitbox issues, that's 10% of the fucking game. Think about it. It's really bad. Yeah, 30 NPCs, I'm not kidding, right? And, like, that's an issue in itself. Like, a lot of the, you know, like, the samurai warriors in Ebonscale Reach, any of you guys that have played up to, like, 60, the big guys that are two-handed the sword, they're just the demons from the corruption event. They have one extra mechanic, which is the triple, the swing, 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 and that's it. That's the only difference. They're the same thing. The tigers there are the same as the wolves. And the wolves are the same as the dogs. And the dogs are the same as the corrupted dogs. It's all the same. There's no mechanic differences, nothing. So, to say that, oh well, there's just a few bugs, it's fine, they're fixing the bugs. Yeah, that's nice. Here's an example. Okay, this is the brain of the New World developers, and I want to say also, the New World developers have been receptive to criticism a lot, and that's why I'm giving it. This is why I'm giving the criticism. It's because I do think that they can improve and they can do better, and they've shown that they can do better because they went from 1 year with no dungeons to the next year with like 7 dungeons. And I honestly think that the dungeon layouts in the game are phenomenal. They're really, really good. Like, go do Lazarus and then tell me, look up in the sky, look at the skybox, look at the dungeon layout, and tell me that's not an amazing dungeon. It is fucking awesome, man. It's so good. And, like, I really mean that. Like, it is straight up fucking amazing. And Starstone Expedition, where you have to go, like, in between those different lines, it's just so well designed. It's so good. But it's held back by having to kill 100 trash mobs. 50 trash mobs between a boss. And the boss is just a trash mob with more health. Like, oh my god, what is this? Like, it's like Molten Core. It's like Molten fucking Core. Like, what is this? And, like, I get, yeah, it's a new game. Yeah, okay, that's nice. Improve it now. You know, we got the game out. It's good. Now let's make it even better. So I'll give you another example. Like, I don't really give a lot of criticism about WoW, right? I've talked about, obviously, how I feel about some of the censorship changes and some of the things. I think that they're ridiculous, and I think these are manifestations of mental illness within the developer team. That's what I think they are. I think they're ridiculous, it's pathetic, it's patronizing, and again, we're not the ones who had the lawsuit against us, so why are you taking away the paintings of pictures of, like, females that the players do? We're not the problem. You are. So anyway, that's the way I feel about it. But, like, I'm not going to go through and, criticize every little thing or whatever with Blizzard, because they don't give a fuck. They don't care. It doesn't matter to them. They don't have any opinion on this. Like, they've already chosen to ignore the player base and do what they want to do. And with New World, that has not happened. And that's why I'm so adamant about giving feedback about New World, is because I think that it can improve and it can get better. And there are so many ways that it needs to improve and it needs to get better. There are so many ways. Whether it's from the economy, whether it's from mobs, whether it's from like end-game progression loops, there are just so many things that the game needs to improve on. And I hope that they will do that. But what I want to say is that for anybody who's a big fan of New World, you're right, it's important to be critical and to try to be constructive. But whenever you're having your time wasted in 30-minute blocks per quest, because they want you to go, okay, so go one zone over and click the blue rock. Come back. Okay, alright, you're back, that's good. That took you an hour. Next to that blue rock, you guessed it, it's a red rock. Go get it for me. This is not good. This is not good. Also, the idea that this is inevitable, or there is no technology to create quests that automatically progress themselves. This is a manifestation of the mind of a level 35 player. Because anybody who's level 60, who's played the game, who knows anything about it, knows that whenever you're max level and you level a weapon up to 20, which I've done, by the way, 3 times already, and I'm going for 4, 5, 6, and 7 as well. I've done 3 of the entire legendary weapon quest lines. That the legendary weapon quest lines automatically progress and give experience and also weapon crates dynamically as you complete the quests. So they already have this technology in the game to begin with. There's no excuse. None whatsoever. And it's just, it's disappointing. It's so disappointing to see people making excuses for this kind of stuff. Because, yeah, they have the technology. They have it there, and they're not using it. I'm sorry, but, like, the game, I feel like whenever I'm playing New World, it's like 80% waiting. Like, I'm running or waiting to do something. Whether I'm waiting to get to an area, whether I'm waiting for a respawn on an NPC, I'm just waiting. I think they need to improve that. It's bad design. So that's basically, yeah, waiting in queue too. And it's the same thing as people that were mad that they couldn't transfer. Like, it's just, there's so many things about it, right? I'm just like, I could go on and on and on about this for like 3 more hours. But like, all I'm gonna say is with New World, I think that the player base for New World and some of the more avid fans of New World are doing the game a disservice by hand-waving a lot of the obvious problems the game has. And I don't think the release was that good. I don't think it was that bad either. I think it was just mediocre. I think that it's an absolute embarrassment that Amazon can't run a server that can run more than 2,000 players on it. It's insane. More than you can't have a server like this. Amazon, it can't run a server with more than 2,000 people. Are you fucking kidding me? This is a joke. I'm so pissed. I've been playing the game. I've played New World now. On Steam, it says I put 300 hours into the game. A little bit more than that. I played the game probably like 10 hours a day every day. I played it a lot. And, Jesus, yeah, I played it a lot. And it's because I like playing the game. It's been a very, very good distraction for me for like my IRL situation and everything. And I can just play the game and not have to think about it. I just hit rocks, I turn big rocks into little rocks, and it's great. And so it's a great game for that kind of stuff, but I want it to be more. And I think it can be more. And I think that people that make excuses for why it's not more ensure that it never will be. So that's the way I feel about New World community and the game. I think the game's got a great foundation, but it's got a lot of things to improve on. It's got macro problems like faction balance, and it's got micro problems like telegraphing on certain bosses, for example. Like Scylla is like kind of a weird telegraph with certain abilities. So there's like problems like that are like macro and micro level. So yeah, that's the way I feel about it. Let me read a few comments here, and then that's about it. Why are quests capped? I mean, quests are capped at 30. There's no reason you'll ever need more than 30 quests. I think quest capping in New World is actually completely fine. Yeah, no issue whatsoever. Body blocking. Yeah, body blocking and PvE content. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, nobody likes that. It sucks. Like, that's what... And, like, you can never do, like, large group content because of that. Oh, yeah. Great. Amazing content. Now we just have to sit here and wait for... wait to try to hit the boss because somebody else is standing there. Now, and, like, again... They literally have an on-off switch for body blocking, not only coded into the player's disposal with being able to take your weapon on and off. As if anybody doesn't know, press X on the keyboard, you put your weapon away and you can walk through players and it's fine. But on top of that, in cities, all body blocking is disabled, even whenever you have your weapon out. So there's no excuse for body blocking to be in dungeons. You understand? Like, they literally have a use case inside of the programming of the game that clearly distinguishes areas in the game as disabling body blocking. Just put that in the dungeons. And you know what? I'm not a programmer. But I guarantee you, it's actually probably about that easy. I can pretty much fucking guarantee you. It is, yeah. Yeah, it's like I understand process analysis. Like I understand a little bit of like programming theory. I've taken classes in it. I'm not a programmer. But I do not think it's that hard. Anyway, so I wanted to make this video, talk about a few things, and I'll probably make a more in-depth video about New World at some point in the future. That's pretty much all I've got for today, guys. I just wanted to come in and talk about the stuff with Final Fantasy. Game's looking great, and I'm really excited for Endwalker. I hope to be back streaming soon. I had a bit of a cough last night and today. And, you know, obviously I have a little bit of a cough. What does that mean? That clearly means I have coronavirus, and I'm terrified of going to see my mother, because what if I give it to her, right? Like, this is where my brain goes, because I'm that kind of a person. So, I don't know when I'll be able to do that, but it just, and like, by the way, my taste is fine. I have literally no other COVID symptoms. But it's just that I have a bit of a cough. It's kind of dry. So it's just one of those things, right? It gets in your head, right? And whenever you worry about stuff, it makes you, it's like a self-perpetuating thing. Vicious cycle, whatever you want to call it. I might stream some New World later on tonight and complain about the game more. It'll be great. I'm super excited. And yeah, that's currently what the plan is. But I wanted to make this video. Just for everybody out there who want to get a little bit more information about my experience with the whole media tour, and with Endwalker as well. So yeah, that's how I feel. Take care of yourself. I'm trying to do my best. And yeah. Anyway, I'll see you guys very soon. I'll let you guys know whenever anything happens. Until next time, boys. Peace.
I can't cast that yet.
プレイヤーもみんな2人のストリーミングね、2人だけのじゃないですけど、みんな見てるので。
But yeah, we're really happy that you guys are enjoying 14 so much and you have the freedom to kind of roam around and do what you do. And a lot of people in Japan, the players in Japan have kind of watched you guys stream as well. Sometimes just the two of you or like other streams as well. So yeah, I hope you continue to enjoy the game.
さて、今日ね、何を聞いていただいてもいいです。 MMO の話をしようぜでもいいし、ゲームの話をしようぜでもいいし、プライベートなことでもいいです。何でも思うことを質問していただけたらと思います。よろしくお願いします。
Yeah, just I want to open up the floor to y'all's questions now. I mean, we can talk about anything we want. Like, if you wanted to talk about MMOs, great, or just the video games in general, or something private, that's fine too.
Yeah, I think one of the places, so Asma and I have a bunch of questions, obviously, that we want to ask, but I think one of the craziest things about starting to play Final Fantasy for both of us is just how different the communities felt, and we felt incredibly welcomed from everybody, obviously over here with you guys, but also the community itself. We felt very welcomed, and we're curious if, with the giant surge of new players coming into the game, if you felt like it's changed the community at all, or how you felt it's impacted what already existed.
やっぱりこうレディットの反応とかを見てると、やっぱり違うゲームを長く遊んできた人たちっていうのがこう一気に流れてくると、当然それぞれのコミュニティで文法とか大事にしてきたものってちょっと違うと思うんですよ。だからそれによっていい意味で比較が、例えば向こうにこういうシステムがあったけどこっちにはないんだね、こっちにはあるけど向こうにはないんだねっていうのがこうポジティブに混ざっていく今タイミングなんじゃないかなと思っていて、それによって両方がよりよく発展するきっかけに両方というか、例えば今ニューワールドも出たので、MMO 全体というかゲーム全体がまたコミュニティが混ざることで全体がホットになるっていう今タイミングだと思ってるので、それ自体はすごい面白いし、もしかしたら小さい混乱はちょっと起きてるのかもしれないけど、ゲーム全体にとってはとてもポジティブなことだと思ってるんで、ニコニコしながら見てます。
So just looking at some of the posts in Reddit.
しながら見てます。ゲーム全体にとってはとてもポジティブなことだと思ってるんで、ニコニコしながら見てます。
So just looking at some of the posts in Reddit, I know some people have moved over from other games, and a surge of players came from like experiencing other games coming into Final Fantasy 14. And so naturally we do see like a difference in the way they like communicate, some of the grammar that they use in their language, as well as some of the things that players cherish and feel is important differ. And I have seen some comparisons being made, I mean in a good way, like, oh, I noticed there's a game system like this on this game, but I never saw it in the other game, and vice versa. So I feel like there is a sort of positive sort of mixing of players, and I'm hoping that this will allow for like both sides of the games, or like both games, to get more hyped up and build more excitement just in general. I know New World was released very recently, and that's also kind of getting attention. And by having multiple MMOs and having the communities kind of mingling with each other, mixing in with each other, will allow for just MMOs in general to get really hot again, I'm hoping. So it's really interesting to see this. And of course, there are small skirmishes here and there, confusion happening, but I feel like it is affecting the game positively, like overall. And so, like, yeah, I have a grin on my face for sure. I'm smiling throughout this.
We certainly have been too. It's been a real pleasure to try and play the game. And I wanted to ask also, how do you feel like because it hasn't just really been Final Fantasy, it's been other games, like you mentioned, New World, and then Ashes of Creation, and Crowfall, and RuneScape, OSRS, World of Warcraft, and we're really starting to see, it seems like, a resurgence of MMOs in general. And do you think that it's going to be a situation where a rising tide floats all ships, and everybody just kind of all of the games grow and become better because of the competition against each other? Or do you feel like there's going to be a resurgence of MMOs in general? Because for the past, I mean, really majority of the decade, it seems like MMOs haven't really been as popular as they used to be in the mid 2000s.
どれだけのタイトルが粘り強くアップデートしてみんなを楽しませようとできるかどうかっていうところが結構この先がポイントだと思ってます、まず。
So first and foremost, I think it kind of depends on whether these titles will be able to like keep at and be tenacious about updating the game and making sure that the players continue to enjoy the content. And then he has more to say.
MMO のローンチはめちゃくちゃ面白いんですよ。バグも含めてログイン戦争って言われるログインできるできないも含めてめちゃくちゃ盛り上がるんですよ。みんなわからない手探りでいろんなことが起こる。だから本当にめちゃくちゃ面白い。でもやっぱローンチを過ぎた後どれだけそのテンションが維持してもらえるのかっていうところがとても重要なので、やっぱり今はそのいろんなタイトルのローンチが近いタイミングでこう来てるのですごく全体が盛り上がって見えると思うんだけど、本当の意味で MMO がもう一回こうバーって盛り上がるかどうかはやっぱこの先やっぱ半年1年っていうところに結構かかってくるのかなと思ってます。
And so, of course, with an MMO launch, it's always very interesting to watch just the behaviors, like with all the bugs and issues that they find, or we call it login wars, like people stuck in queues for login, whether or not you can actually access the game, is something that's actually kind of exciting watching a new MMO launch, and everybody's kind of like looking for their way, kind of feeling their way through the dark, and it's very interesting. But I think when it starts to calm down after a little bit, and if the game is able to kind of maintain that momentum, I think is very dependent on whether or not an MMO survives. Because right now, of course, yes, we have been seeing a lot of different MMOs kind of releasing or launching close to each other. And it does seem like MMOs overall is showing excitement and just everybody is getting excited about it. But I think the real test is going to happen like 6 months down the line or up to a year down the line.
で1個だけすごい重要だと思ってるゲームデザインのポイントがあって、今の世の中やっぱりみんないろんなものを触りたい、触っていいと思うんだけど、ゲームがこうコミュニティもそうなんだけど一つのゲームにこう縛ろうとするみたいなことを強くやり始めると結構苦しくなると思ってます。いろんなものを今やっぱりエンタメってそういう時代になったので、そこが結構重要なポイントなんじゃないかなと思うので、どういうゲームデザインでそれぞれがこう突き進んでいくのかっていうところはすごい興味深く見てます。
And I did want to add, with game design for titles like these, I know players will always want to experience many different things, like a variation of different elements. But also at the same time, there are very strong-minded community that tend to want to tie people down and kind of chain them down in some instances. And I worry about like the pressure that might place on a player. And so with entertainment, there are just so many options nowadays. And so I think that's an important point to keep in mind about just there is so many things available that we allow for that freedom to kind of experience the different elements out there and what kind of game design we are able to sort of provide for those players to keep their interest.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm really curious about overall when you look at MMOs, because making an MMO to me, like my hat goes off to all of you because it seems like an absolute nightmare. The amount of resources and to actually be able to distribute something, I feel like one of the things that we've seen happen to so many MMOs is they have to fall back on mass appeal, and you get in this weird area where the game is ultimately being made for players who hate the game and don't want to play the game. And now as I start to look at games like even like New World, it's much more focused on a different aspect and it's more one tracked and trying to attract a different type of player. Do you feel like game design and the way that MMOs are actually created now, there is more of an opening for niche MMORPGs instead of these giant mass appeal Frankenstein monsters where everything's slapped in, none of it's great, it's all watered down? Or do you feel like MMOs are always going to shoulder that burden and just require too many resources?
そういう意味だと MMO って作る人が結構決まってたんですよ。そのベテランで MMO が好きでっていう人たちがまあ MMO を作るみたいな時代が結構長く続いてたんですけど、最近の作品ってやっぱり MMO で育ったゲームデザイナーたちが自分はこういう MMO を作りたいっていう新しいチャレンジを今始めているので、なのでいろんなパターンのゲームデザインの MMO が登場しようとしてるってことはめちゃくちゃいいことだと思います。まず。
Yeah, I think it also lends to back in the day, people who created MMOs tend to be very similar. Like they love MMOs and they're veterans, and you know it's kind of limited. But nowadays, I am seeing more and more developers who grew up playing these MMOs, and they have their own vision of, oh, I want to make this kind of game going into it. And so I think that's what's contributing to these different styles of MMOs that are coming out, and I believe that that's a wonderful thing.
I can't carry
ただ MMO ってやっぱりゲームであると同時にサービスでもあるので、やっぱりインターフェースだったりとか、その短時間で遊べるコンテンツがあるかどうかとか、そういうなんか他のサービスに存在しているものの要求レベルが非常に高いので、まあ、そこに関してはやっぱりもう負けずに、もしくは今足りなくても着実に積み上げていくってことがとても大切なので、やっぱりこう資本を裏で持ってる人たちがそういったゲームデザイナーたちをどれだけこう応援してあげられるか、お金を切らさずにね、まあ、そこも実は MMO を成功させる要因のうちにはとても大切なので、まあ、そこをこうバックボーン側にいる人たちが支えてくれると嬉しいなとは思います。
And so, but that being said, of course, while MMOs are a video game and a form of entertainment, it's at the same time a service that we are providing to players. And so we have to be careful about, okay, what kind of interface are we providing? Is there content that players can just jump on for a short amount of time and just jump off? And just the level that is expected in terms of service that we provide through these games are quite high, and the expectation is there. So I think at the same time, like the creative aspect of it is important, but at the same time, we also need to make sure we have the sort of resources available to kind of build upon that experience. Even if you're lacking now, as long as you can continue and to sustain yourself, you can build on it and glean more experience. So I think it also requires for there to be good backing for investors to kind of love the product and sort of back up those creative minds so that they can continue to sustain themselves as well, kind of having them as a backbone to support those creators.
ただ繰り返しになるけど、その新しいゲーム、特にニューワールドもそうだけど、僕らはめちゃくちゃ刺激になるので、今はちょっとエンドウォーカーのマスターで忙しすぎて触れてないけど、終わったらすぐ触って刺激を受けて、また14に新しいコンテンツを考える時のスパイスにさせてもらいたいので、すごい楽しみにしてます。
But I don't mean to repeat myself, but with New World being out, that is definitely a great source of like stimulation that we can get. Of course, right now we're on Endwalker and we're trying to master up and go to market. But once that has settled down, I'm hoping that we get a chance to get our hands on it as well, to gain that sort of new experience so that it'll add some spice to our creativity as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things about seeing all these MMOs is kind of seeing a lot of the good ideas cross-pollinate and kind of be shared between the different games and everything. And whenever you're talking about the MMO and the game itself as really a service and as something that people are effectively consumers for, one thing that's always been in a balance with MMOs is the difference between a solo player and the difference between a group player, and also about punishing content as well. And how do you draw the line between making content for just the individual solo player and still keeping it in the feel of an MMO, and also with punishing content and time, basically things that make you spend more time playing the game, things like running back to your body, things like repairing your gear. Many of the I think the legacy features and old school feel of MMOs, and not necessarily just feel, but the features of MMOs that really kind of make them take a lot more time. Final Fantasy, it seems like, has shed a lot of those different features, and you're able to go directly to the boss. There's not really a lot of trash mobs and everything like that. And so basically, what is the balance that you're trying to strike between making the MMO a super ease of access solo player experience versus a more punishing and involved MMO experience that I think people have come to, in a way, expect with MMOs? And I think in a good way, it's been a breath of fresh air. Final Fantasy didn't have many of those things.
そうですね、僕自身がもともとかなりのヘビーゲーマーでヘビー MMO ユーザーなので、僕が好きなコンテンツばっかり作ってるとガッチガチの MMO にまずなっちゃうと思ってます。
So I have to admit, I am actually a heavy MMO gamer. So if I were to just make stuff that I felt was like good substantial content, it's going to be like one of your typical like super hardcore MMO.
Inventory is full.
まあちょっと下手したらね、仕事を辞めてた可能性もあるぐらいなので
One false step and I may have just left my job, you know.
もし今僕が MMO まあゴリゴリやってた時に今のようにストリーミングっていうことがあったら、僕が仕事を辞めてた可能性が非常に高いと思います。
I'm sure if streaming had been available when I was really into like obsessively playing these MMOs, I would have like not gone to an office job. I would have chosen the path to become a streamer.
It's a good thing it wasn't.
He still has his hair because he didn't end up streaming.
でもまあその中でやっぱり MMO を遊んでくる中でやっぱ友達になった人たちって必ずしもヘビーゲーマーばっかりじゃなかった。日々フレンドとチャットをすることを楽しみにその世界に来てる人たち、風景を見て回りたくてそのためにレベリングをしている人たちで、自分がすごい難しいレイドもしくはもう何百時間もかけなきゃ取れないようなウェポンを取って帰ってきた時にまるで自分のことのように喜んでくれるフレンドだったり、すげえ武器あるちょっと見せてほしいって、そういう人たちがいて初めてその 世界って共有されてるし、自分ももっと強くなりたい、上手くなりたい、すごい武器取ってきてみんなに見せたいっていう欲求が生まれると思ってるので、僕にとってはなんか全部がとても大事なので、そのすごいヘビーユーザーって声が大きいからよく聞こえてくるし、どうしてもそっちの意見にこう引っ張られがちなんだけど、そうじゃない、世界を支えてる本当にたくさんの普段は声をそんなに上げない人たちによって僕らヘビーゲーマー、ゲームの中でゴリゴリレイド行ってるような人たちも支えられてるっていうことをすごい学んできたというか教えられてきたので、僕はどっちに対しても欲張りなので、もうどっちに対してもコンテンツを提供するっていう以外の答えがないんです、まず。
But yeah, but while I was playing a whole lot of MMOs, I would meet other players, of course, and you realize that some of them may just come into the game just to chat with the other players. They might just want to tour around the areas, just look at the environments, just admire the view, and that's the only reason why they level their character. Or some of them may be those hardcore raiders that want to go into punishing content, spend hundreds of hours to get that super cool shiny weapon, but then you also have the friend who's like, oh, I love what weapon you got. Let me see. I have no idea what content you went into, but that's a really cool looking weapon. And so there's just so many different people, so many different kinds of people playing MMOs. And once you see all those people there, that's when you first realize that, oh, this world is being shared by a whole bunch of other people. And by looking at the other players, you realize, well, I want to be like them. I want to get stronger. I do want to get better. That weapon is really cool. I really want to go and get it. And it's just everything is so important. Like, we don't want to neglect people just because they're casual or just because they're heavy raiders. Of course, a lot of the vocal people tend to be the heavy gamers, I have noticed. So I know our opinions kind of get influenced by those louder voices, so to speak. But I think we also have to understand that our world is being supported by not just them, but there are a whole group of other people who enjoy the game in their own ways. They may not be as vocal as some of our players, but the world is not just like me with the heavy raiders and the super hardcore people, but there are different people supporting this world. And so I'm greedy. I want to satisfy everybody. I love the super casual solo players, and I also want to provide punishing content for those who want to go in and hardcore raid. So I don't know, that's the first thing I would say. I want to deliver content for both groups.
なので14の場合はおおむね奇数パッチ、メジャーアップデートの奇数パッチはできるだけカジュアル寄りにしよう。で偶数パッチはレイドを入れて、ハードコアレイダーたちに楽しんでもらおう。でも例えばだけど次のパッチ 6.1 ではカジュアルよりのパッチ 6.1 に次の新しいアルティメットを入れるので、レイダーはもうそれを楽しみにしてくれればいい。メインストーリーが終わってアルティメットの新しいのをクリアしたらワウのレイドをやりに行ってもよりレイドをもっとやりたいんだったら他のゲームのレイドをやってもらえばいいと思ってて、でまたその次の例えば 6.2 が来たらよし新しいレイド来たから戻ってくるぞ。もう僕は今の時代はそれでいいと思ってるので、とにかく両方に向けて頑張るけど14で足りないなら他のゲームをその間プレイしてくれればいいんじゃないかなって。
So with that in mind, with Final Fantasy XIV, we have these major patch updates, and every odd patches, we do implement some more casual-ish content. And then in the even numbered patches, we incorporate the raids, the high-end raids, so that the hardcore raiders can enjoy that content. But while we will be implementing some casual, skewing casual content in patch 6.1, we do intend on implementing the new ultimate raid. So those hardcore battle raiders have something to look forward to in that patch. And so I feel that you have the freedom, like once you've finished off the story and you want some challenging content, of course, please go into the ultimate content. But once that's done and you're still looking for a challenge, and if you want to go to like an encounter in WoW to kind of test your metal, that's perfectly fine, I think. And then once a new raid is implemented in 6.2, then you're more than welcome to come back here as well. You know, I do want to satisfy both ends of the spectrum in terms of casual versus hardcore, but at the same time, if players do feel that they're not quite satisfied with just Final Fantasy 14, I think we have the freedom for them to kind of explore other games if needs be.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things about a game like that doesn't have retention mechanisms, is that it doesn't feel like it's a job or a chore or anything like that. So I very much appreciate that, and I think many players do as well. And whenever you're talking about challenging content, I think that probably the pinnacle of challenging content is going to be the ultimate fights. And I was curious if there are a few very difficult, as I've learned recently, challenges for solo players, namely Necromancer and the Heaven on High as well, the Lone Hero title. Are there other plans to add? I believe that there's one 4-man Savage raid. Are there more plans to add more difficult types of content and more heavy challenges that are aimed towards a smaller group of players, like maybe 4 or 1 player?
これは結構昔から特に北米を中心にもらうフィードバックなんですけど、いよいよちょっと何かしら計画し始めてはいます。詳しいことはエンドウォーカーリリースした後にレターライブでお知らせしようと思ってますけど、可能性は上がってきたかなとだけお伝えしておきます。
You know, I actually get this a lot, namely from North American players. It seems the desire for a smaller group and challenging content is quite high. So the feedback is acknowledged, and we are trying to see if we can plan for something in that vein. But I'm afraid I can't divulge on the details at this time. We do plan to do another live stream after Endwalker releases and things have settled down. We will be doing what's called a letter from the producer live. So I'm hoping that we can share some details and updates on that. But the possibility for sure is there.
Yeah, I think in that vein too, one of the questions that I had, giant insurgents of new players coming into the game, like just a whole bunch of new players coming into the game. How much does it affect this current expansion, or how much of it was already so far along or already done that there might not be an impact?
エンドウォーカー自体に関しては後者ですね。特に影響を受けてません。というよりスケジュール的に影響を受けてる余裕がないって言った方が正しいですかね、まず。
So first of all, I think it would be the latter, specifically for Endwalker, only because we don't have any wiggle room to like be impacted by external forces that have come recently.
ただやっぱり新しい人たちが入ってくるっていうことは、今までのプレイヤーとの価値観と違った価値観でいる人たちが増えるっていうことでもあるので、その人たちが14をプレイした時に何を感じるのかっていうのは、僕らはどうしても最新のコンテンツを作っているので、過去のコンテンツをフレッシュな気持ちで遊ぶっていうのは結構難しい。だから今の14をゼロからスタートした時に何を感じるのか、それをどう発信してくれるのかっていうのはすごい僕らにとって。
Game, and so I think it allows for us to have this new insight because of the new players that come in here. And I'm very curious to know, like, what are these new people thinking about as they start Final Fantasy 14 from scratch, because we can't go back to old content to get like a new perspective or a new understanding on something. It only happens when you like first encounter it, I think. So whenever I do see like new players joining in and seeing what kind of information they're sharing with their community or what kind of posts they're making on social, like their sentiment and their kind of opinions are very interesting, and I'm very curious to see what kind of reactions they are getting seeing this content for the first time. And that actually allows for us to kind of identify any areas or pain points that might require our attention. Are there any areas that we need to go back in and sort of adjust, or do we need to perform maintenance on certain elements in our games? And so it allows for us to kind of open up that funnel to welcome more people in. So it is definitely a discovery. It's great to see like new players sharing their opinion over their social channels to see what they're talking about.
でどっちかというと1個だけそのベテランの光の戦士たちにどちらかというとお願いがあって、まあ僕はファイナルファンタジー14のコミュニティ、まあプレイヤーの皆さんは本当に情熱的だし、みんなとてもニュービーに優しいし、本当に世界一のコミュニティだって自信を持って胸を張って誇りに思ってるんだけど、そのみんな新しく始めて迷いながら自由に楽しく遊んでるので、もう先回りしていやいやあれをやった方がいいよ、これをやった方がいいよ、いやもうここはこうした方がいいよ、いやいいんだよ、みんな自由に遊んでるんだから、頼む、困ったんだ、助けてくれって言われたら助けてあげてほしい。でも先回りしてその自由な楽しみ方まで奪わないでほしいので、そこはどうかちょっと離れた位置から温かい目で見ててあげてくれるとすごい嬉しい。みんながそうだというわけじゃない。でも一部14が好きでより楽しんでもらいたいからっていう気持ちが強すぎてそれを言う人たちがいるので、それはちょっと距離を置いてあげてほしい。そこだけかな。
But if I could add one more thing, and I think this is more directed at veteran players who have been with Final Fantasy 14 for much longer, but of course, our community, I am very proud of our community. They are very welcoming, they're very kind. Whenever a newbie joins in, they're quick to help. But some of them, and I feel like we have the best community, one of the best communities in the world. But and I see new players coming in, and of course they want to enjoy that freedom of not knowing, like and doing what they want to do and kind of feeling around. And some of these players, bless their hearts, they're so eager to help that they're like, oh no, do this instead. And they're jumping ahead of some of these newbies and just too enthusiastic about helping them. And I feel that they're kind of taking away from that freedom. So I hope they distance themselves just a little bit so that they're not overwhelming our newbies. I know they just love the game and they want for the players to experience, like get the best experience as quickly as possible. But I feel that their passion is just a little overwhelming at times. So I hope that our veteran players are allow for our new players to kind of experience some of this freedom of discovery.
Sometimes you have to let the new tank open with plunge and not know how to use shirk.
I've learned a lot of things by doing them wrong. So yes, I fully understand that.
そうですよね。タンクにたまにはそのシャークでヘイトを取るのじゃなくてプランジでいきなり飛び込んで間違えさせるのもいいと思うんですよ。で、アズモンさんもそうまさに失敗して覚えることもあるので。
そうなの。でも2人とも覚えておいてほしいのは、本当にみんな多分2人のことが好きで14が好きだから、より楽しんでもらいたい、よりこの先に待ってる冒険にスムーズにたどり着いてほしいっていう思いが募りすぎて、いやもうクリアするんだったらもう早くこうしてやればクリアできるよって言いたく多分なっちゃうんだよね。でも やっぱり楽しむ、ゲームなんだからエンタメなんだから楽しむことが最優先なので、その声は「はいはい」って言って楽しむことをぜひ最優先にしてほしい。それはもう14だけじゃなくて他のゲームを遊ぶ時ももちろんそうだし、やっぱりなんか本当鎖に縛られると本当つまんなくなっちゃうので、それだけはお願いしたいです。
And I'm sure some of these, and I know people who have played with you two as well. They just love your presence there, and they just want to be so helpful, and they really want you to get ahead and see the adventure that lies ahead of you. But some of them get a little too excited about like, oh no, you need to do this in order to get through this content more efficiently and whatever. But I want to tell them like, dude, it's just entertainment. You're supposed to enjoy the journey here. So I don't know if you ever come across people being a little too enthusiastic in their helping, just kindly disregard them and just kind of smile and nod or whatever. And I hope that players, you included, and our existing community too, I hope everybody just prioritizes having fun in Eorzea. And I mean, not just in Final Fantasy 14, actually, with any game. I don't like it when people chain each other down with weird politics or like awkwardness. It gets a little boring, if everything is in a set pattern, like if everybody's kind of restricted and limited to like my way or the highway. So I just want people to just enjoy the games.
Yeah, I will say that definitely enjoying it a lot. I know people like to joke around about me like stalling, but it's just my immersion. I get so into all the things that are happening at all the times, even if it's just a bard that happens to be standing next to me while I'm walking over to a quest while I'm doing MSQ. But one of the questions I really wanted to ask is just the open communication that you guys have, even us being here right now. The community that Asmon and I originally came from, that was not the case, not at all, even though we were part of it for a very long time. I understand why different companies have different policies on things like that, but I do personally feel like the community being so incredible in this game is a reflection in a lot of ways of how open you guys are to talking to that community. Is there ever any hesitation or nerves? Like what actually allowed you guys to get to this place where you have such open communication with all the players?
本当にそうですよ。パーティーでプレイしている時も、時々動きが遅いから突っ込まれるんですよ。でもそれは自分がゲームに没入していて、ここを味わっているっていう証拠なんです。MSQ をメインシナリオを進めていく中で、なんか銀融詩人に惹かれてついていくのも、それだと思うんですよね。で、実際にそのコミュニティのお話があったかと思いますけれども、本当にコミュニティとのコミュニケーションが非常に風通しの良いものを。
結構答えは実はシンプルで、まずそもそも14がオリジナルで大失敗してる。でそれを僕は後から入って立て直さなきゃいけないっていう状態だったので、当然ものすごい怒ってる人たちに対してやり直しますっていう時に謝ることも大事だし、それをどう挽回するかっていうのをちゃんと伝えていくことっていうのは、当たり前だと思うんですよ。ミスをしたので。なのでそれをちゃんとしようっていうのを会社に伝えて、やれるんだったらもういいよ好きにやっていいからって言ってもらったんで、それをやってるっていうのが一つ。
I think the answer might be simple, more simple than you imagine. First, Final Fantasy 14 had a horrible launch. 1.0 was quite a failure, and I was brought in to kind of rebuild it after we had fallen flat. And so, of course, the players who were looking forward to a new Final Fantasy MMO were extremely angry. And so the first steps that we took was to apologize to them and then show our commitment to improving and correcting our ways and how we're going to do that, and be clear in our objectives and how we're going to make sure we're relaunching. So I felt that was just natural, or as a matter of fact, to do this first and foremost. So I consulted corporate and explained to them, hey, I want to have an open communication with the community, let them know what I want to do, and they seem to be okay with it. So that was the first step I took.
でもう一個は、 まあ僕がやっぱりそのウルティマオンライン以降ずっと MMO を遊んできててすごい残念だなと思ってたのが、僕は例えばウルティマオンラインめちゃくちゃ好き、大好きで、まあプレイしてる人たちもみんなそうで、おそらく当時、まあ、スタートオリジンの皆さんも、まあ、情熱的だからこそウルティマを作って良くしていこうとしてた。だからどっちも同じゲームを良くしようとしてってるのに、いや要は同志なのになぜか敵対関係みたいになるんですよ。僕らは当時よくそのバグと戦ってるかオリジンと戦ってるかみたいな、まあそれはそれでまた面白さもあったウルティマは。でもこれが時間が経てば新しいメモになればなるほどだんだんやっぱりこうお互いゲームを本当に大好きなのになんか本当敵みたいになっていくのがすごい嫌だったんですよ。でパッチ一つとってもうまくみんなに伝わってないし、だから僕が MMO を自分で作って運営していくんだったら、せっかく同じゲームが大好きで盛り上がろうとしてるんだったら一緒に盛り上がっていきたいって思ってたのを、ついに自分が全権式の MMO ができたんで、よしじゃあ俺が理想にしてた MMO をやるぞっていう感じでやってます。やっぱり友達でも家族でも何を考えてるかわからないってなったらすごい怖い恐怖だと思うので、お互い何を考えてるかができるだけ分かるようにしたいっていうのがもう一個の理由です。
ごめんなさい。吉田さんの今のコメントを訳す前に念のため確認させていただきたいんですけれども、アルティマオンラインとオリジンというのは2つ別々のタイトルですか？
あ、違います。ウルティマを作ってた会社がオリジンシステムズですね。はい。はい。すみません。はい。知識不足でした。はい。Sorry, I was just double checking something. So of course, the first step was to apologize and to make sure we are talking to our players about what we wanted to rectify. And for example, I love Ultimate Online, and I love the game. I love them so much, and I'm sure the other players who played Ultima Online, really loved the game as well. And I'm sure Origin felt that they wanted to make their game better and they wanted to improve upon it. But for some reason, from how I perceived it, it was like developers versus consumers, and it didn't feel like we were collaborating. It felt like we were enemies almost. I mean, we both love the games. The consumers want to play a good game, the developers want to build a good game, but for some reason it was either we're fighting against bugs and issues, or we're fighting against Origin, and it was very sad. And once time has elapsed, it would have more MMOs would have come out, and like it just felt such a shame that both parties really just have love for the game, but it just felt like an opposing position against each other. And so whenever Origin would try to let players know about a new patch that's being applied, it didn't get communicated properly. And so I felt that was such an unfortunate situation. So I was always thinking about, if I were ever to make my own MMO and to build a community, I would love for a better means of communication. And that chance came with the rebuild of Final Fantasy XIV. And so I had my chance to kind of build my ideal sort of environment. And so, yeah, I tried my best to convey what exactly I'm trying to do with the game, just so that the players understood and know the intentions behind it all.
Go ahead. Oh, was he done? Sorry, I wasn't.
すみません。大丈夫ですか？
大丈夫よ。どうぞどうぞ。
Yes, he was finished.
Okay. Yeah. You completely nailed it there. About the developers and the players being against each other. That is exactly the way that I have felt with not just one game, but many games before. And I think that also the type of more honest and direct and personal communication between the developers and the players, and more so the shared love of the game between the developers and the players, and being able to even play with the players. I know that Yoshida has his own character, and he sometimes plays with actual just random people in the community, and I think that's beautiful. That's amazing. And that is just, I think, probably a big reason why the community at large is more positive too. And I think it is because of that more open line of communication with the developers.
本当におっしゃる通りだと思います。MMO に限らずですけれども、その開発対プレイヤーというその敵対関係というのは、本当にその一つの作品だけじゃないんですよね。そういった状況だなって感じた時があったので、本当にそのプレイヤーに向けて、その真摯に向き合って、ダイレクトに、そしてその個人的というか、そのパーソナルに情報を共有する。で、かつ、そのお互いにゲームが好きだという部分というのが非常に大事だと思います。プレイヤーと一緒に遊ぶという要素も非常に素晴らしいと思っていて、結構吉田さんもヨシピー散歩などで、プレイヤーと、アトランダムなプレイヤーと一緒に遊ぶなどしてこられたのは本当に美しいなって思って、おそらくそういうところが、コミュニティをポジティブで前向きな姿勢にさせてくれているのかなと思います。そのオープンなコミュニケーションが。
なんだろう、僕やっぱりいろんな MMO でやっぱりフレンドから聞く言葉、まあ自分自身でも思ったことありますけど、開発こいつら自分が作ったゲーム遊んでんのかよみたいなやっぱ思っちゃうことがあるんですよ。でやっぱり僕らもあなたたちと同じように、まあ実際そうなので、僕だってアラガン・トムソン一生懸命集めて一生懸命レイドに通って練習して上手くなろうとしてる努力ってやってるんだから、見てもらった方がより安心できるし、もう本当にそれだけですよ。ただ僕は負けず嫌いなので、やっぱり黒魔同士メインにしてるなら世界一のやっぱ黒魔同士になりたいと思ってプレイはしてるので、まあだから一緒ですよ。楽しくゲームやってるっていう姿を、まあ、お互い見れた方がよりね楽しいし安心なのでね。
For sure, and I've heard my friends talk about this, and I feel it sometimes too, with some MMOs. They wonder, do these developers even play their own game? You know? But with us, like a lot of the developers on Final Fantasy XIV are warriors of light ourselves. We go to the raids, we collect our Allagan tomestones to exchange them for our weapons, and we are working hard. Like we are players ourselves, and I think it's just best to show that, like let the people know that yeah, we love our game. And I myself am a very competitive person, and I main a black mage. And so I want to be the world's best black mage, you know? So I mean, like that's just it. I think it's just the shared love for the game and just playing together.
だから固定じゃなく、どんなプレイヤーのパーティーに急にランダムに飛び込んでも俺はちゃんとどの場所でもどのタクティクスでもプレイできるぞっていうために家に帰ったらずっと14やってたりするんで、いやもう僕は本当楽しいですよ。14の仕事はもうなんかあんま仕事だと思ってないので。
So I don't play with just my static. I sometimes queue up for like a random group, and no matter what strategy they try to pull or no matter what position they do, I want to give it my best. And so I want to learn these strategies. I go home and continuously play Final Fantasy XIV. So it is a lot of fun being part of this team. You know, it's to the point where I don't really feel like it's work.
That's such a nice thing to hear. One of my questions is definitely what other games do you sometimes try to play to draw on inspiration? I remember watching some interviews way back at like different things like the No Pixel documentary and things like that, and hearing about some of the things that you got from Mist of Pandaria, for example. Are there any current games that you sometimes draw inspiration from?
ちなみにその他のゲームなども遊ばれますか？で、その遊んだ時にその影響を受けたりすることはありますか？結構過去のインタビュー、ノークリップのドキュメンタリーであったり、あとミスト・オブ・パンダリアの影響を受けたなどのお話を伺っているので、どういったゲームに刺激を受けているのかなというのは気になりました。
いやもうなんか上げたらもうそれだけ多分一日中ライブストリーム一緒にできるぐらいなので、全部はちょっと難しいですけど。
Man, if I were to list each and every single one, I think I can do like a full-on live stream show, like an all-day show. Gosh.
僕にとってやっぱり大きいのはウルティマオンライン、ディアブロ、ワールド・オブ・ウォークラフト、エヴァークエスト、ダークエイジ・オブ・キャメロット、この辺りは多分僕が技術者としても、ゲームデザイナーとしてもベースになってるものとしてはとてつもなく大きいタイトルだと思います。
But if I were to bring up a few, of course, Ultima Online, Diablo, World of Warcraft, EverQuest, Dark Age of Camelot. So those are games that not only as like a game designer and an engineer, but yeah, those titles are very much an influence to me.
もちろんスタンダーローンのゲームだと、ファイナルファンタジーシリーズとドラゴンクエストはもうやっぱり日本の開発者としてはもう絶対というか、まあ僕の世代はもう絶対なので、それはまあ当たり前で。
And then as for standalone titles, of course, the Final Fantasy series and the Dragon Quest series is just standard for any Japanese developer out there.
あとはそうですね、僕もともと結構 FPS もやるんですけど、Call of Duty Modern Warfare の1、2をやった時にこれちょっと例えが適切かどうかわかんないけど、これはファイナルファンタジーだなと思ったんですよ。 FPS なんですけど。
And then also, I love first-person shooters. So when I played Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 and 2, and I know this might sound very inappropriate, but I thought to myself, wow, this reminds me of Final Fantasy.
なんか本当少人数で世界を救うじゃないですか。リアリティがないですよ普通。でもめちゃくちゃ面白いんで、あれ結構衝撃だったんですよ。 FPS なんですけど。
And I know you go into there, you go in as the protagonist, and you have this very small party who saves the world. Like, you know, it's such a it was such a shock. It's like, oh wow, that's just like Final Fantasy, although it's a first-person shooter.
で最近だとまあちょっと前ですけど PS4 のスパイダーマンが出た時にこれだけなんていうんですか、テクノロジーと遊び、それからキャラクターコントロールをなんだろう、ゲームってエンターテインメントで提供できるんだっていうのはすごい悔しかったし、すげえなと思ったので結構実は影響でかくて、でその後はゴースト・オブ・ツシマでちょっと悔しくなってるんで、ちょっといろいろ考えたり感じたりしてることはあったりしますね。はい。
And then some of the more recent games would be Spider-Man on PlayStation 4. That one made me feel so jealous and envious, and at the same time just left me in awe that they were able to bring together like the gameplay elements to the character controls, bringing together like video game and entertainment in a single package. So yeah, I was very jealous of that. And then Ghost of Tsushima made me feel very jealous as well, so that left me thinking a lot also.
まあなんでまあ話してたきりがないのでまあこれぐらいですけど、多分皆さんが思ってる以上にめちゃくちゃいろんなゲームちゃんとクリアまで全部やってますね。
But yeah, it's a lot. If I start listing them, I don't know where I'd stop. But I love games, so I play a lot of games, and I do a lot of playthroughs as well.
I hate to be the bad guy, but we are a little bit over time. We could probably do something the next couple of minutes if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Perfect.
Rich, you want to go ahead?
Well, just because we're at the end, I do want to say one more time, thank you so much. If you gave us 8 hours, we'd probably ask for 9 because we're so excited to actually get to talk to everybody. And for like, I've honestly, the past 3 months have been so incredible. And I think I can speak for both me and Asmon that we've had a truly incredible experience. So
yeah, thanks a lot for giving us this opportunity. It's a privilege. We've really enjoyed playing the game so much. Originally, whenever I went into it, I didn't really know what to expect. And I think at this point, I've probably logged about 20 to 30% of the hours of all days up to the day that I started playing the game on the game. So I've played a lot. It's been extremely fun. I've loved it. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you for making such a great game.
I think Asman and I both, when we went into the game, we intended to beat the hardest content possible. Like that was what we both wanted to do. And I'm pretty sure he spends about 14 hours of every day just in Gold Saucer. And I'm just, he's just trying to make the best Chocobo ever. And I'm just in my FC estate just all day long stalling.
そうですね。まあ、終わりのコメントになってきましたので、こちらからぜひ感謝の言葉をお伝えさせてください。おそらく8時間のインタビューをやろうって言った話であったら、こちらとしてはもう9時間も話したいというぐらい、吉田さん方とお話しできる機会を本当に楽しみにしていました。ゲームをプレイしてまだ3ヶ月なんですけれども、本当に素晴らしい体験をさせていただいて、素晴らしい経験になっています。で、アズモンさんの方も本当に今日はありがとうございました。ゲームを遊ぶことができて本当に光栄に思っていますし、ゲームを始めた当初は本当に何が出てくるのか全然わからない状態で入ったものなんですけれども、本当にハマってしまい、ゲームを始めた段階からもう全て遊んでいるゲームのうちのもう2割3割をもう占めてるんじゃないかというぐらい遊び込んでいます。ので、本当に大好きなゲームとなりました。で、もともとリッチさん、アズモンさんが14を始めたきっかけは、ゲームの中で一番難しいコンテンツをクリアしようぜっていう意気込みで入ったつもりだったんですけれども、アズモンのやつ、14時間は優にゴールド操作でずっと過ごしてるよねっていう話をしつつ、リッチさんはFC ハウスの中でもだらだらまったりしてるだけになっているので。
いやいやでもやっぱり MMO って僕はこれも僕のちょっとインタビューの最後のコメントにしますけど、やっぱり MMO って遊び方自由であるべき、まあそもそもゲームは全部そうあるべきだと思ってます。
Yeah, I would like to share some comments on my end as well. So first, MMO, and I think this applies to any game in general, but I feel that video games should allow for the player to be free in what they do.
でやっぱりゲームに疲れることもある、プレイするのに疲れることもある、リフレッシュしたいこともある。だから僕はなんか1個のゲームに縛る本当にナンセンスだと思ってるので、今は2人とも WoW を1回お休みしてるとは思うんだけど、14プレイして WoW プレイしたり WoW プレイして14プレイするとお互いのいいところっていうのがまた見えてくると思うので、やっぱりいろんなゲームの配信をみんな多分楽しみにしてる。それは2人だけじゃなくて、なのであんまり責任感でゲームをプレイしないでほしいなっていうのはすごいどのストリーマーの人にも感じることなので、ぜひ楽しんでプレイをしてもらえると見てる僕たちもみんな楽しいと思うので、ぜひそれは忘れないでいてほしいです。僕が言うことじゃないのかもしれないけど、はい、ぜひこれからも楽しんでもらえると嬉しいです。
And so with that freedom, some people might get tired of playing the same game constantly, or like just gameplay gets to be a little tiring. Some people might want a refresh. And I feel that players don't need to be tied down to one single game. For all intents and purposes, if you guys were like taking time off from World of Warcraft just to play 14, I don't know. I feel like it's players who kind of latch onto one single game and just become too tied up with a single game is nonsense. It feels very unnatural. So if people want to play 14 and go to WoW and then go back and forth, I think that's perfectly fine. And you might see the positive elements of both titles by being able to get that different perspective. And I would love for people to streamers out there also to not be so like tied up or like feel a sense of heavy responsibility or like an obligation to stick with a single game just because that's what they have sort of concentrated on in the past. I would love for people to explore various games out there. There are many options out there. So I hope we're not placing any sort of like obligation on you guys either. Like we would love for you guys to just continue to enjoy the game, and we never want for it to be any sort of burden on you guys. I think that will also allow for the audience to see you guys like genuinely enjoying what you do, and that will allow for us to enjoy watching you guys, having fun. So I feel I want to encourage you, like, you guys do a great job in what you do, and please don't forget that to enjoy yourselves too. I don't know, I might I might be stepping out of bounds by saying this, but I wish that you continue to enjoy playing your games.
I genuinely, I've enjoyed the story so much that sometimes after stream I go back and I use the feature where you can replay the story missions. So like I've enjoyed the MSQ. I have not binged a story as much as like the last time I binged a story this much was like when I watched One Piece for the first time. Like that is how much I love this story. So I am enjoying myself so much, and I can't thank you guys enough.
It's been nothing. It's been everything except a burden. It's been very fun, and I've loved being able to have that ease of access of just being able to play the game without feeling like I'm compelled to, or without some sort of retention mechanic keeping me engaged. And I thank you for that. It's been enjoyable to just be able to play it at my own pace and really enjoy and appreciate the story as well as just the gameplay and the content and the raids and everything.
いや、ありがとうございます。遅い時間までまた機会があったらぜひ次はねコロナが落ち着いて直接フェイス2フェイスでお酒でも飲みながらね話せるとまた楽しいと思うので次の機会も楽しみにしてます。
I'm definitely looking forward to any future opportunities we may have to speak with each other, hopefully in person. I'm so done with this pandemic. I would love to just go out for drinks and just talk shop some more with you guys in the near future. Thank you again for your time.
Would love that. Thank you again.
We would absolutely love that. Thank you so much.
See you next time.
Thank you very much, guys. It was a privilege.
Hey buns of the future, I am recording from the past. Well, I'm always recording from the past, but today for me is September 29th and I just experienced the media tour yesterday and I just had to record my first impressions video. I really have so much to say. I want to talk about it with you, my raw first initial impressions. Now, this is not intended to be a comprehensive review of changes, and all that stuff will come later, or will probably release around the same time as this video. Basically, it was a remote deal. It wasn't, we didn't go anywhere because of COVID, so the media tour was done completely remotely. I got 6 hours to play Endwalker, and let me tell you, that time flew by, and while I was playing, they were recording all the footage, so they have all the footage, they have all the screenshots that I took, and I haven't got that yet because I mean they still need to like get it out to everybody, so I haven't even had a chance to like look carefully and closely at everything that I saw, but I still wanted to make this video. Basically my first impressions, tell you what my experience was like as a player. So yeah, first thing that comes to mind is Reaper, of course, like the new jobs, but Reaper really stole my heart, I gotta say. I mean, I think I was, before I did the media tour, I was waiting for Endwalker, like, I was like, oh, this is, about 2 months away, that's fine, I can wait a little. And now that I've played Reaper, this is so much worse. Like, it's so much painful for me to wait the 50 days or whatever it is from now. Well, when you're watching this, it will be less time, but yeah, it seemed at first glance to be very complicated, but you get a little play of it and it's very intuitive. It's very straightforward. It seemed like not hard really from, at least on a dummy, and at least from my like initial thoughts on how it's meant to be played. But basically, like, you fill up a red bar, and the red bar lets you cast a spell that gives you a buff, and you use the spell to cast another spell, and you use those other spells to summon or like become the demon form, which looks amazing, by the way. It's really cool how like it still looks like you. It still looks like your character, but you really have just been transformed a bit. And by the way, if you happen to be playing a Keeper of the Moon Mikote, then you can see her fangs. That's the only character that I'm aware of, besides Hrothgar, I guess now, that has the fangs, and it looks really cool on Keeper of the Moon Mikote. Though I have to say, I think that the Viera looked pretty good too, but I mean, Viera always looks good, which we'll talk about in a minute. I wanted to like try to keep this somewhat organized of a video, not be all over the place, but I loved Reaper. I could not stop playing it, which was kind of a problem because we only had 6 hours to play, and I just did not want to stop playing Reaper at all. I did a dungeon as Reaper, and it's very flashy. It is, like I said, it doesn't have a lot of positionals. That was the number one thing I was real worried about with Reaper. I thought it was going to be very positional heavy. Nope. There are like 2 positionals, and they're not buttons that you're pressing all the time. So if you are a person that doesn't like to constantly do positionals, but doesn't mind a little bit of it, it's very good. And that fits the bill for me. That is exactly what I had hoped for Reaper, and I think it has the least positionals out of any melee. I absolutely loved it.